you're up close to just under 70% of New Zealanders that have no exposure to the gospel.
Glad to be here with missionary Charlie Frank in Auckland, New Zealand. Well, I have three questions that I have for you today, and I appreciate. How has New Zealand come through, or are they through, the COVID-19 pandemic?
Oh, well, I'm glad you added that last phrase, because we are not through it. We have just recently, a week ago, we went down to level 2. Now, our system is backwards from the United States, so level 2 means things are getting less and less strict, but we still have restrictions. They're still requiring 2 meters distancing. We are limited to 10 people for religious gatherings. So we are still working through it. And the government is giving indications that it's going to be a slow process before all the restrictions are lifted. But just statistically, I think comparatively to the rest of the world, New Zealand is quite proud of the fact that our numbers are stacking up quite favorably against others. We've had 21 deaths. We've had 1,500 confirmed or suspected cases. We've had 1,447 recoveries, which gives us a 96% recovery rate. Currently, we only have 1 person in the hospital. So compared to the rest of the world, New Zealand is very proud of the fact that our numbers are stacking up quite favorably.
So what does the government say, if you know, or if they are saying, needs to happen in order for that level 2 to then regress to a number 1?
Well, I think they're making it up as they go, just like everybody else. I think they're just making it up as they go. One of the big concerns that we have is travel restriction. They are talking about a South Pacific bubble, which means we would open up travel to Australia, perhaps to the islands, Samoa and Fiji, but we would still be restricted to the rest of the part of the world, which for us is very significant because our number 2 industry is tourism. So the economic impact has just been devastating down here. So again, the government is almost going week by week on the information they're giving us. We are supposed to know next week whether we're going to step down to level 1 or whether we'll carry on with level 2 or whether there'll be changes in the restrictions for level 2. We just don't know.
Okay.
To be honest with you, Rodney, at this point, we don't really know. We don't know what is going to happen next week. As far as our particular ministry, we've been able to maintain our Sunday morning Bible studies online. Our evening studies have not been able to go online just because of the people involved in technology, etc. But we've been able to stay in contact with everyone. And I don't think we're going to lose people of our Bible study, but we certainly have lost momentum in the area of evangelism, of outreach, in the sense that, we haven't been able to put out flyers. We haven't been able to be talking to people face to face. On the other hand, we have had the opportunity to minister to several families in a practical financial way. People who've lost work, people who had some problems, we were able to help them out financially and work with them in that regard. So that's been an open door for us as well. Well, when you asked that question, I actually pulled up some statistics from our 2018 census. And these are government figures. These are not my figures. Um, Over 50% claim no religion. If you add in the 18.9% of those who are involved in the cults and non-religious or non-Christian religions, you're up close to just under 70% of New Zealanders that have no exposure to the gospel. Then if you add into that churches who have gone liberal, churches who have pursued the social gospel, the figure reaches even higher than that. So essentially you could say minimum 70% of New Zealand is without the gospel. And then if you consider, quote, evangelical churches, the number of churches that have gotten involved in the social gospel, number of churches that have gotten involved in what I call pep rally religion, where we don't talk about sin, we don't talk about hell, we don't talk about repentance, we just want everybody to feel good. The statistics are just overwhelming. New Zealand is a country that is desperately in need of Bible-believing religion. Now, a couple of years ago when we were on furlough, we used these 4 words to describe the majority of churches in New Zealand. Churches in New Zealand are either dead, and we see closed churches everywhere, turned into craft shops, turned into hay barns. They're dead. They are destitute. Those are the liberal churches who talk about the gown the queen wore at the latest ball and that sort of thing, but they don't preach the gospel. The dying churches. Now, these are churches that in my opinion, are still sound doctrinally, but the average age is above 70. They're dying. You know, the old faithful ones are dying off, and there's nobody to replace them. And then the fourth category are the ones that we classify as being decaying. Okay. If you go to those churches and you listen long enough and you listen hard enough, you might hear the gospel, but it's so well disguised amongst all the other hoopla, the latest anointed teaching or the latest seminar. One man described it as, when I went to church, it was just a giant pep rally. And the goal was to make everybody feel good for the rest of the week until they come back and got their pep up for the next week. Right. So that would be the majority of the churches in New Zealand. We desperately need solid Bible-believing churches here in New Zealand, and we need missionaries. We need people who will come and share the gospel.
Brother Charlie, you have been a missionary in New Zealand for how long?
We're just entering our 31st year.
And during that 3+ decades of time you've been there, have you seen a lot of missionaries come, and go, or not very many missionaries?
Yes, we've seen a number of missionaries come and go. They go for a variety of reasons. Sadly, we've seen some who've gotten in moral difficulty and were forced to leave the field. We've seen some that have left because of family reasons. They didn't want to homeschool, and they couldn't find decent schools for the kids, so they went back to the States. Some left because of health reasons. Some just got disillusioned. We've seen missionaries that come in and, I'm going to set New Zealand on its ear. And 3 years later, God's called them to a different field. New Zealand is a hard slog.